Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. We're at the start of my work week, the job that actually puts the roof over my head. Grateful because I have been in my head to have a job that I can ground in, that it allows me to live fairly stress free, right? You might look at it as an insignificant job, but I am in the process of learning my trade, right? Practicing my craft, and but I still have to live. I still have to live. And so I have to throw a little shout out to the little job that allows me to do this, right? Not just allows me, but is part of, because right, I am creating my life, and it starts with me, and that's part of the vision, right? Of just being able to move forward, to just do a little bit better by ourselves. Hello, Andrew, right? And that is in our day to day, isn't it? And as time goes by, we can't help but move, but we can see that if we're not, looking and and seeing that destination for ourselves, if we can't have a vision of something that we want, right? I have to say, as a child, I was very creative. I had lots of visions, right? You give me a chance to be the project manager of something that you were working on. Oh my goodness, right? I could whoop up Dazzle in the maze like you wouldn't believe. And yet, I never had that vision for myself, right? Which is really, really odd when I'm looking back at that, because it would seem that I would take myself into consideration, and maybe I was just left to be so busy. I didn't take it under consideration, like I just don't have time, right? Like that idea of when we get a little time off, when we get those 3 days off, when somebody close in our family passes away, so they give us that time to grieve, right? 3 days, that's nothing for something and someone that you have been attached to for all of your life. And yet you're expected to come back after that. And, maybe it's that idea of putting those emotions and feelings and those things that we need for ourselves on the shelf, right? So we don't inconvenience others, right? So that we don't bring people down sometimes to our level. And that's very kind if we can consider that, because we know for the most part, most people like to drag us down to their level of pain, right? Their level of stress, anxiety, frustration, and to even have that consideration to alleviate that discomfort in somebody else by just keeping that discomfort to yourself. I don't know. Gotta kind of respect that, can't you? But at the same time, does it do us good? Is that 3 days enough for us, right? We're talking about vision this week. And I just was really curious, and I was taking note that this might be a very, very good thing for me, because, when I said that I can get into my head, and I'm so grateful to go back to my job because it's going to give me something to ground in. I know my routine. I know my what to expect there. I'm under somebody else's guidance, dictation, right? And of course, right, I'm grateful to have a job that I can play that role myself, and that I have that job that I can again practice my craft in those small interactions, right? I am in customer service. There's lots of opportunity to do good, right? But that vision for myself also means that I have to recognize when I'm not grounding in those other parts of my life. And I have to take into note this week that I noticed that, well, not just this week. How long has it been now that this show, What's My Good Cheer, that has been on Instagram for years? I brought it over here to YouTube because I love YouTube. I'm such a Google girl, right? I belong here. For me, this is home, right? They've invested in me, right? They've invested in me, and it's not a matter of I owe them, but again, you gotta honor that when somebody wants to, right? That wants to, that I understand that they're looking out and possibly, years down the road, decades down the road, maybe even lifetimes down the road, that we might still have this relationship. You have no idea in innovation, and that's part of visions too. Not necessarily my visions, but things that I take into consideration, and I look towards the people that have those visions, right? Their gifts, their the things that delve into that piece of raw meat, right? That they're like a pit bull, right? And they delve in and dig deep. But I like to um, keep up with what's going in innovation. And that again is kind of strange because it's not something, right? I was never technically inclined. I was never pulled towards those interests as outer space or the moon or right. These were things that my dad was passionate about, and then all of a sudden to find out that in my 50s that, I'm starting to pay attention. I'm starting to look at these visions of other people throughout history, and not just look at those visions, but look at how they were manifested, how they came to be, how the airplane came to be, right? How the wheel came to be, right? Telescopes, language, like it's everything is just so curious because it's who we are. It's who I am. And maybe I'm fine tuning it. I'm really getting right down to that, right? One celled amoeba kind of study, but not really, because I don't think any of us could really get a good grasp, because that vision, right, is only a part of a vision, right? And each one of us plays that role. It reminds me of a quote: "We are only but one link in an everlasting." Oh my goodness, I forgot it, but it was a good one too, right? And it is the truth. And so I'm trusting that there's a vision, right? I have my goals. I'm trying to take myself into consideration. This brand is part of my vision, right? It's part of my vision. This creation of the best human being as I possibly can, right? Is part of my vision. Wanting to give back and practicing my craft in that idea of the possibility that that might be how I give back, right? Being able to ground in all these little aspects that make up the whole, because when you just concentrate on the big vision, the vision sometimes is so big, so massive, right? That we don't think we could ever possibly achieve it, right? And I've learned by even my own steps that it's okay to do it in baby steps. And sometimes it's even better to do it in baby steps because that pressure is off you to get the lesson, right? And so we're not rushing through the lesson. What's important is the lesson. And if that lesson takes a week, takes an hour, takes a year, it takes a lifetime. We're still working on the lesson, and every lesson I've come to realize is something important because it was a gift, right? Because it was somebody's ideas, somebody's thoughts, somebody's creation, and we're all borrowing off of that. And isn't that just a true indicator in itself that it takes all kinds to make the world, that we can't survive without our neighbor, right? Without that person that we're trying to keep under our thumbs? Where would we be? Where would the leaders be without the followers, right? And oh my gosh, where would the followers be without the leaders, right? Oh, I wish I knew this quote. Maybe I'll take a look at it later on and I'll come back with it tomorrow because we are talking in on vision, right? Hello, Kathy. Hello, dear. Listening while I pull post. But isn't that in itself a good idea that I can hold a conversation and somebody could do other things at the same time, right? Because lots of times when we take in the lessons, we can easily get distracted in what we're doing, right? In what we're doing. And well, in the target audience, in my audience, in highly sensitives and empaths, we have learned to pay attention at the same time as working on a task, right? Right? That vision, that goal of getting the dishes done, right? That goal of getting the dishes done, but at the same time, maybe wanting to come in here and hang out with me, which is very, very sweet. I really appreciate it, right? But, right, not everybody could do that without getting involved in what they're doing and then rushing off onto the next thing. And that's the special crew that we have. Right. And that's the idea that if you can do that, what else can we accomplish, right? Who else can we hang out with? Because I feel sometimes that I am so different than everybody else that I meet. But noticing it in my day to day, in that job that I ground in, that I practice my craft, in showing up here and, right, joining in on the conversation or, right, watching the messages and the conversation itself as I'm doing my own thing and I have no idea how it's going at the same time, right? Because on Instagram, it just really wasn't a talent of mine. But then again, I was using my phone. And we all know that I do love the monitor, right? Those eyes of the middle-aged lady. I wonder, am I still considered middle-aged? No, yeah, I'm still considered middle-aged. I think it's like when you're 65 years old, you're considered to be a senior, right? So, in my vision for myself, all those small pieces, all those small experiences I had, all those large experiences I had, all those conversations, all those heartbreaks, all those moments of grief, right? That I was expected to put on a shelf. And how good of a job I did, I don't know, right? Without choking on it, without it coming to the surface in the most opportune moments, right? Without being triggered by a memory and falling to pieces. This is all a part of the lessons, all part of the conversation, all part of the story. And even though it doesn't play out in this moment and it may not play out in many, many conversations down the road, but who's to say that I might not bump into somebody down the road? And even though, right, I didn't get that message for myself, that somehow I took in that information and that person had the vision. That person, it was just, and it came from Joe Blow from Ohio Pig Farm, right? And they just met. They just They just met. Who knew where they met? In the grocery store or something, and they started up a conversation. And that little piece of information got passed along to somebody else who had the 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 vision, right? The thought. And is just looking about how to make it real, how to make it work, right? And that's what we do when we have these interpersonal connections with each other, even though we are so different, even though we butt heads. I come from a dynamic family. Each one of my sisters is so different, and we were very, very close, right? Very, very different, and we didn't always rub each other well, right? And in fact, we rubbed each other detrimentally wrong in some ways. But maybe that was part of the vision. Get it? The bigger vision, that part of the vision that I don't understand, that part of the vision that may answer some of those questions that I might have asked my entire life, right? But because it's part of the bigger vision, I wasn't privy to that information in the moment. But because I hunger for it, because now I get a little bit of information, I feel like a pit bull with a piece of raw meat in my mouth. I tear it apart, and like a pizzle, I put it back together. That I get to have a vision, that I'm understanding, and I've learned those lessons now to appreciate that I personally can have a vision, right? Visions for myself, but more importantly, visions for what I saw, right? That didn't quite click properly in my life, right? Because that's the only thing that, right? Those are the only evidence in my life of the things that didn't work and the things that did work. And I can't just be influenced by somebody else's vision, right? Unless I truly feel like it's a part of my vision too. And so I continue to take the lessons in, right? The lessons that I know will lead me, right, to the bigger, grander ones, the ones that will make a difference, right? Wouldn't that be amazing? We don't all get the opportunity to have a vision that makes a difference. But then again, we're not even trying. And right? And even though we don't know what that vision is, even though we don't know that vision is, we can sense it, we can feel it, we can see by all the other things that's attaching, that just all those little things that just seem to work and belong with it, that, right? And it's like the building blocks. All these little things are just like the building blocks, or the little particles that are being magnetized to the vision, right? Until it's entirely covered and then it's entirely formed into that vision itself. Okay, Andrew said something here. Cindy, you reminded me of a song, Why, by Annie Lennox, in which sings, "These are the dreams I will dream instead." Right? That's a good one. Oh my goodness. You're so well. You're welcome to come in here every single day, Andrew, if you got nothing to do. Because I always knew that about you too. And it was maybe not a vision of mine that you would be connected to my live show, What's My Good Cheer, Andrew, because I knew you didn't do Instagram, but I didn't know that this show was going to be coming on to YouTube. I thought the show was going to stay on Instagram, and that YouTube would be my outdoor adventures, and my walks and my right? My road trips and stuff. And I'm so pleased that in my wish, right, that it would be amazing if Andrew could be a part of this. And here it is right now. And you've been throwing the past few days that you've been coming into my life, you've been throwing in these amazing quotes. And if you guys hang out with me for any length of time, you'll get to know Andrew. He's absolutely amazing. He's one of my moderators, and I'm grateful to have him, and I consider him a friend. I've known him for years now, and yeah, it's really neat how things work out, because I truly, right, you remember me, Andrew, trying to talk you into figuring out how to work the Instagram and to come over to that platform, right? Remember, I tried lots of times, many times, and look at, I came to you. Isn't that great? I came to you. Okay, you guys, I've got to run off today. It's the job that puts the roof over my head, and I have been working with a cold. I've been working with it. I took aspirin. I'm not a medicine type person. I don't take anything except for vitamins. But I took some aspirins, and I took it easy. I didn't really go out of the house on my days off, right? I just not too well, I did a little bit. I can't help myself, right? But I did take it very easy, and I feel a little bit better today, right? I can see I got a little bit of a sweat on, right? But that's okay. We're back to work. We're back to work, and we're going to have an amazing week. We're going to have an amazing week. I'm going to have lots of fun. We're going to get lots done. And we've got one more day, right? We've got one more day on this word, and then Monday we'll be on a new word. We'll be on a new word, and I've got a whole pile of words here, but I really am excited how the words are coming to me. So I wanted to talk tomorrow a little bit about honoring others, honoring, right? We talked about it the first day only because it's a trigger point for me, because it's those parts of me that still need healing, right? And I've done lots of forgiving, I've done lots of work around it, but it is a deep wound, right? So when it talks a little bit about uh, vision, I wanted to talk a little bit about the visions that the ones before me might have had, and the things that I didn't take into consideration growing up, that I was a participant, right? Or maybe a spectator in somebody else's vision, right? And that sometimes can lead us into, right, paths what we can find years down the road didn't serve us, but at the same time we could also discover parts of us, right? Parts of us that we didn't realize that were actually there. Okay, you guys, I'm going to cut it off here. Andrew. Thank you. And that's funny because I've kind of gotten the same message twice in the past month, and I think it ties up a lot with with forgiveness. It ties up a lot with forgiveness. It ties up a lot with understanding, right? Just humans in general, and history and progression and visions for a better future, right? Okay, I really do gotta go, you guys. We'll see each other tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye bye. That was good.